Hi guys, it's me, Nick's Morningstar right now, and I'm pretty much waiting for Nick Sariis to get on, so that way we could start the interview. And Nick Sariis is on, so I am going to invite him. Let me see, how do I do this? How do I do this? And now we're waiting for Nick Sariis to get added. Hello, Kyle. Hello, Skipper.
Hello.
Hola, how's it going?
Alive, breathing, making things work. You know how it is.
All right, so you guys, of course, you all know me as Nick's Morningstar, and do you prefer to go by your legal name or by the name that I call you by?
Just call me Sariis. Call me
Okay.
make it easy.
All right, cool. Got it, got it, got it, got it. All right. All right, so you guys, this is Sariis, and this is actually his first interview. He's a practitioner of, a few different skills that has not really and he hasn't really been discovered as a practitioner.
Live under a rock as long as I have. It tends to be very easy to hide.
Yeah, how many years have you been in solitude?
Give or take, on and off, jumping in and out, 10 years, give or take.
Wow. 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 That is a long time. I'm sure that it was either probably devastatingly, mind-numbingly boring, or it was actually the greatest experience of your life. It's usually either one of those two things when it's solitude.
Mm, it's probably one of the most peaceful times of my life. I didn't date. I didn't do much. I actually focused on my practice, and I made leaps and jumps in what I did.
And that's pretty awesome. And like I said, I remember I actually got referred to you when I was, down south in your state of the region, and someone told me about your medicinal tea. And then
You're
you
breaking up on your end.
no, what I said was I remembered I was referred to you when I went down south to your region, and someone referred me about your medicinal tea that you have made out of red reishi mushroom.
You keep going robotic on me.
I apologize about that. It's probably bad internet connection on one of our ends because you sound crystal clear on my end.
Okay. Hello.
All right, can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yes, a lot better.
All right, cool. Well,
Okay.
as I was saying, when I went down south, I remember someone referred your red reishi mushroom tea to me, and that's when we kind of exchanged some information, thoughts, and topics, and then I got you to get a reading.
Oh yeah. Speaking of red rice tea, might as well grab my usual batch. Let's see our get mug. And that is red rice tea.
And it has
Completely
a
cold.
lot, and it has a lot of medicinal purposes, for what I'm told.
Oh yes it does. It's like a medicinal balm. There we go. Perfect. Drink from half-gallon mason jar or drink from mug.
All right, and Saris,
Mug it.
Roxy Lynn would like to know like what the medicinal purposes are of red reishi mushroom.
Oh, what the medicinal purposes are?
Yes.
It is a okay. This is a mouthful.
Wait, let me say one more thing real fast. And just to let you guys know, red reishi mushroom is legal. It's not a psychedelic mushroom or anything like that.
All right. So first off, as I'm doing this, its main medicinal purposes, it is good for cancer. It is an antiviral, antifungal, anti-poison. It is an antihistamine. It can help with high blood sugar because it naturally lowers high blood sugar.
Is it good for anxiety?
It can be.
See, for me, I just can't wrap my head around the concept of drinking a mushroom.
It can be a very strange experience, to say the least.
And so, I do have a couple of questions I want to ask you too, though, about, like I got sidetracked off the tea. I apologize about that. I just remembered actually like the elderberry flavor was amazing because that was the one I tried, but then I love anything elderberry. So,
Well, naturally. Elderberry overall is amazing. But that being said,
this being said, going by what we recently talked about in the last reading that I gave you when I got totally like struck by your energy and I realized exactly you were way more than just a person living under the rocks in the South for 10 years.
um, I'm a spiritual worker, and the taste of it is very bitter. I'm working on a variant that is soothed out. I'm trying to use a honey variant to try and soothe out some of the bitterness. And
May I
spiritually,
may I make a suggestion on
yes,
that? Um,
yeah, of course.
a vegan option that doesn't have honey but agave.
It's perfectly safe. I will say this much: this tea, do not add sugar to it.
I shall
That is
not.
one thing.
I
Do
shall
not
not.
add sugar. That's one of the worst things you could do to this tea.
Why, thank you,
Um,
Mr. Hunter.
oh, and also another thing that you can do is for the tea aspect of it, um, it's actually good for cleansing out your system and clearing out chakras along the way. At least that's how I feel when I consume it. Makes it a lot easier to manifest.
So about like you saying that you do spiritual workings and anything like that. I definitely sensed your energy in the last reading that I gave you, and I definitely want to know like define what you mean by spiritual workings.
Okay, you have various ways that spiritual workings can work. So basically, it depends on application.
Yes. Trying to adjust my camera a little
So,
bit.
for instance, okay, divination. We'll start with divination because it's the easiest spectrum to go into.
It's kind of like this. It's kind of one of my very well suited spectrums, yes, as well for me.
Okay, so for instance, divination can take on a lot of different retrospects, you could say. So basically, for instance, if you guys like poetry, I do poetry here and there. We'll just pick one. Sorry, I put my poetry up on the wall. Let's see now. Um, let's see. Okay, we'll go with this one. All right. All right. So you can manifest divination in various ways. For instance, if you write poetry, you can. Would it be easier just to have them read it, or
I mean, by all means, please read. You could read a full poem, or you could read a passage, whatever you're more comfortable with doing. But if you're going to share the example, read it. My
okay? I'm gonna
personal
show it.
opinion.
And all right, here's the variant of it. My finger's blocking it, so let me see here. There we go. That way everyone can read it at their own pace. Okay. Now that being said, silence, purest of state. Gentle breeze, take my hand. Drown the pollution around. Stifle the screams of anguish. Flower prosper in their wake. Lilacs sway on the half moon's face. Maiden's heart gather for your song. Who will you choose, love or hate? Forgive the breeze, for it will take you home. Streams wash over me. The choir of grass waves hope itself. Oh, music, sweep me away. Silent vibration fills the air. Guide me to my next home. Sweep me off my feet. Transcend the veil's touch. Warm the tundra's heart. O stoic breeze, I praise thee.
Kind of pretty
That's
deep
just
and
one
moving,
piece of.
and I could definitely see
That's
that.
just one way of. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead. I was just putting my poem up.
No, you said that's one way, so please keep going. I interrupted. That was my bad.
Okay. With we'll just say tarot cards. This is where you start getting into theories that most people don't touch because they're afraid of messing with what's naturally there. So, for instance, if you like to do tarot cards, you could move the cards around per se in the reading, because in tarot, in theory that I've been working on, so long as every tool and asset are within the same space and you don't add any cards, you can alter the reading so long as it's there, because technically there's various roads. The tools, the destination, and the way they're all are just changing. For instance, if you say, there's only two things I noticed. You cannot have both, but you can have one or the other that you have control of. The destination and how you get there. So
Agreed.
that being said, if you're going for one path reading and someone says, hey, I want help on how I can get that path, you can tell them, okay, you see this reading in front of you. So what would you change about this reading without taking another card and putting it in?
I get the point.
Mm-hmm. You also have a couple of other things at your disposal too.
That's
I know
kind of
you like to
taking
use
divination to
runes.
a whole new level.
Yep. And runes are just like the same way, except instead runes just apply a different perspective. Imagine a new personality you could take for it. But I've also theorized that so long as the last card is not flipped, the reading isn't technically complete. Which means you always have one thing you can't control in a reading.
Of course.
So, that being said, you can ultimately take your readings to the next level per se. There we go. But yeah, um, is there anything else that you'd like to know?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I definitely would actually like to know, you know what I mean, as far as like your, you know what I mean, like as far as like, going into divination and you just explaining what you explained about the cards, do you have any other forms of divination that you do get into?
Yes, I do tea scrying. I do insight writings where pretty much those poems I have on the wall for the sake of simplicity. Well, you can see one right here. I post them on the wall, but basically insight writings. I'll write my poetry down and say I'm sitting in a room giving a reading to someone that I'm close to, and I'll go and I'll look around and I'll feel a poem pull me. And the depth in that poem I can look into for a direction. It's all about the way the energy speaks.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And so, as far as, as far as going back to where you said you consider yourself a spiritual worker per se, what not type, I'm trying to think of the correct term in this. What facet of spiritual worker are type of worker are you? I probably worded that correction question terribly.
I guess you could say, if I had to put a name to a path, I would say Path of the Four Pillars, in a sense.
Okay, so that raises quite a few more questions. What are the key points in that particular path?
I believe one of them was asked if they get to do a Q&A.
Yes,
Um,
Ellen, we can definitely do a Q&A. We will definitely do a Q&A
I'm not against it.
after this question, I promise.
Okay. Um, okay, as a spiritual worker, I can do a lot of things. I'm not one thing I am not is a healer. I am not a healer by any means. My practice is very reliant on the fact that I have the ability to do it within my own will. So the way of the four pillars is I don't serve entities, but per se I view entities as equals as me as I walk my path. Power comes from growth within, but ultimately at the same time there's no limit to how much you can grow. You can use whatever you need to get there so long as it follows balance itself. For there must be good, there must be evil. For there black must be white. For all four elements to coincide with each other. It's ultimately, I guess you could call it, a very strange path, but it's just something I've always walked.
I definitely respect that, and I can definitely understand that. So let me ask you a question on that then. What is the or does this path have an origin, and if so, what is the origin of this particular path?
It actually originates on four concepts that are unchanging throughout any timeline, history, it doesn't matter. And that is the first pillar, reality, the reality everyone walks on, the space we exist in. Time, the space between spaces, that in order to get from point A to point B, you walk through time itself. Chance, the spark of life, if you would, that founding factor that anything can spark, anything can happen at any moment, and it's out of control. And ultimately, fate, how each story will end, how each decision we make ultimately leads to one or another grand ending.
But
Each
wouldn't
pillar has its own foundation.
but wouldn't
Go
that
ahead.
be more wouldn't that be more universal energies than like actual like than anything more than that? Just a question I had in my head.
It could be, and as I said, it could be construed as that, and honestly, that is another take on it I respect. For me, that's how it manifested, you could say. Um, but yes, you could say it's universal energies. It's very, and ultimately, no path is absolute, as nothing in this world is absolute. That's one of the tenets I follow.
That's actually a pretty good tenet because I actually like believe in that tenet as well personally. And I do believe that it's actually like a pretty universal tenet as well that nothing in this life or world is absolute. So,
Exactly.
I would like to know what led you to this particular path.
Ironically enough, if I had to say one thing, it was a dream I had a long time ago, and I remember seeing it. It was, I was 15 at the time. Yeah, 15. And I remember waking up, and there was the space I was in was very weird. I had just gone to sleep, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That comment is hilarious. All right, but pretty much I woke up in this space and there was four pillars, and there was a white and black stone that was floating in the center of these four pillars, and there were sigils floating around this stone, and I was like, where am I? And I felt a very strong presence. As I look up, there's a giant spider looking at me. And so, given the circumstance I'm in, I'm gonna say I basically looked at it and was like, okay, so what am I to do? I'm stuck here. And then it started speaking. And it said, hello, my child. I'm here to inform you that, mind you, I'm not very good speaking publicly. So if I, this is a first time for me.
It's
So
the
I do
first time for me.
apologize if I seem off.
It's the first time of me interviewing somebody, so you're good.
Okay. And basically the spider looked at me and said, hello, my child. You will become my vessel. You will bring change. But ultimately, change serves one thing and only one thing only, and that is balance. And ultimately, I came to the conclusion that I had to face up to this reality as knowledge started surging into me. This was years back. And I got more and more knowledge over the years, and I've been slowly accessing it in a way that the knowledge itself was imparted, but it took time to get there. Here I am 9 years later, and I somehow got to where I am, and I'm like, oh, one step at a time, one step at a time.
So, I actually have a couple of questions to ask you.
Yes,
Um, and my mother's practices as well, like when it comes to speaking of like four pillars. She brought up that in her practices there were three particular goddesses. I totally forgot what their names were because it's not really my practice, so I kind of like lost focus. Don't judge me on that. She told me there were like pretty much like three goddesses, and they pretty much like kind of like drew control and power of four pillars. Are those four pillars related to those four pillars, or is that an entirely different set of four pillars?
I would imagine everything is connected one way or another, and that's what those pillars taught me. Each practice, everything serves balance at the end. Everyone ultimately chooses to give and take. Each practice, whether it's good or bad, each practitioner in that practice, as I said, nothing is absolute. So wrong and right are not absolute either. Light workers, shadow work, you name it, it's all part of a process that balance serves, and ultimately what one is having to face is themselves for that self-mastery.
Sorry, I kind of just stuttered right now. I apologize about that. And I just called out my stutter. I also would
You're good.
like, I also, blah. I also would like to know, in your practices as well, are there any rituals involved? Any workings? Any spells? Any chants? Any potions? Things of that nature?
Depends on which route you take. My path isn't so absolute as to say that my tenets require me to do a ritual for this. I don't celebrate holidays. I don't celebrate my own birthday, honestly. It's a very selfless path, but at the end of it, ultimately it's to help balance as a whole, and that means helping everyone to what I can. So if you look at the practice, I do, and we'll go into my energy workings that we were talking to. Everyone has a network that they use to cast what they call their what they call their magic.
Of course.
Well, I've learned how to alter the fabric of that energy network and turn it into something that help a person even more. Better health, better even better healing properties for the person, but not necessarily healing in itself.
Interesting. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes. Um for instance, you have energy networks and those conduits basically can help improve how fluid a cast is, how much impact it will have on your body based on how well it absorbs the backlash that everyone gets. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's actually pretty simple to go, okay, if it absorbs the energy wave from, okay, best way I can put this. Say you wanted to do a spell. Give me a spell that most normal practitioners would do.
Well, lately I've been getting a lot of requests for money jar spells for like clients and whatnot.
Okay, money jar spells.
So
Money
I,
jar
I'm just
spells,
gonna
in essence,
I was gonna say I was just gonna go off the top with money jar. Well, like with money spells in general, because since that was like a pretty solid request this week, it's been a lot of my workings.
okay. So money jar spell, in essence, would be very much have a negative effect on the environment around it. I don't like bringing bad news, but a wealth spell, if you look at it, saps from things around it to attract it to you. That's just the nature of the spell. So, but the negative feedback is ultimately it doesn't stop when you want it to stop. So it needs to run its course. So, in essence, when it does that, that flashback comes back to hit you. Well, if the energy network can actually take the energy and disperse it a lot easier by being more fluid with itself and let it out as essentially negative waste for the body that it doesn't need, you would think that, okay, that works. Now you have other techniques that you can go with it and go further and say, you know what, I want this to hit harder. So if you control like the end ports, as I call it, your hands and your feet, and if
Yes.
you make those channels, if you intensify the energy networks inside the hand, you can basically make the spell come out stronger and make a more of a splash in the pond. Of course, that's going to
Absolutely.
increase the lashback. but to each their own.
See, I understand your perspective and I get your perspective on that. I personally think, if you are in need, then you are in need, and therefore, balance will eventually work itself out, is my personal take on that matter.
Well, naturally, and that's why one of my other tenets I follow is always respect another's choice and how they view the world.
Because like my stem and my standpoint, I also like do, a lot of energy workings as well. And my view on energy being on a universal standpoint is more along the lines of balance is just a continual flow. Does that make sense?
Hmm. And quintessentially, you're always facing that, and you're always trying to do that. And everyone serves balance. I'm not going to say my path is anything special. It's just what I was drawn to.
And I also have to correct you there. Your path is special, just like any path that anybody gets drawn to is special. You know what I mean?
And that's also another angle I can respect. So, I imagine people have questions for me. If I'm happy to answer any.
If anybody has any questions, by all means, please feel free to ask.
While that while that's going on, do you have anything you'd like to know further?
I would like to know more about your homeopathic practices.
Oh, I'll be more than happy to explain about that. Um, where to begin? Uh, better yet, tea brewing. We'll just go into tea brewing. Make this nice and easy. Tea brewing is a constant art that I am always looking into. So for tea brewing, you got to work on. Actually, I think I have it written down. Give me a moment. No, not that. No, that's another poem. That's an Excrucian rune. There, that's a random. That's another random tidbit of information. Let's see now. Oh, wait, is that it? No, I had it written down so that I could go back to it as tenants, so I could teach other people how to make tea.
I can kind of hear the Jeopardy
Uh,
theme song playing in the back of my head right now.
yes. All right. Oh, if I had to say if I had a favorite author, it'd be R.A. Salvatore. His books about Dritz Duerden is is probably one of the most emotional series I've ever had. Sorry if I didn't see the question sooner. I was scrolling, but yeah, R.A. Salvatore is definitely one of my favorite authors. I don't read a lot about this. I never read about the spiritual community. A lot of my tenets I learned was through my own self-discovery. Okay, there we go. 5 principles of tea. I wrote this down a while back, but temperature control. Basically, how well do you control the temp when you're making the tea? Presentation. How much effort you put into making the tea? Yes, I do incorporate poetry into my workings. That's the poems that I do, more or less, are all prophetic. I take my insight and I always train it further that way. that's why I love my poetry so much, and that's why I put it around the room. Like for instance, talking with Nick's here, I can look around and go, which poem calls out, and I can basically walk up to one. R.A. Salvatore is a fiction writer. He doesn't do anything spiritual. His work is amazing if you ever wish to read it. I just love a good story, you could say. That being said, how much effort you put into making the tea aesthetically pleasing to others. Dedication, how much effort you put into the tea itself. How much are you willing to work for it? How much are you willing to make sure the ingredients are at their top condition? Which also goes into herbal care and prep. Necromancy, I believe it is another tool that one can use at their disposal. It's neither good nor bad. It's another magical art. It's to me, it's a binding of a spirit. It used in excess, just like in healing used in excess, can be just as harmful as anything else, in my opinion. So that's how I would look into it. And technically speaking, necromancy is technically an advanced form of earth magic, which basically just incorporates putting extra bindings. Rule of three is a very strange rule to me, because that rule, it's a tenet I believe can be followed, but it isn't one I personally follow. I believe karma comes in its own form, and it doesn't have necessarily a set way it does it. Like, for instance, if I harmed Nixie here, it might come to me 5 years later when I least expect it, and I've actually built myself up.
May I interject something? Um,
Yes.
not disagreeing with your viewpoint, and it's not my it's a theory I have on that rule of three. And I'm using the term theory because I'm using an understanding facet of it, not a principle facet. Does that make sense?
Yes. I
Okay,
understand.
okay, I believe the rule of three isn't so much an actual literal rule of three as much as it is from the perception of it. Let's say if,
Okay.
let's say if let's say if I like get a knife and I stab you in the stomach, you know what I mean? It's not going to really hurt me. But when karma comes back and I get stabbed back into the stomach, I'm going to feel it three times as worse as, you know what I mean, as I imagined you to feel it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because I was actually on
And
the receiving end of that.
yes. And I will say I consider all is fair in love and war. That is one saying I will follow to the very last day I breathe a breath, because in love and war, you've got a lot of people out there who think that various entities are just as bad as the others, so much as it is demons and angels are dealers. That's what they are. And to view them as such, that's my way of viewing them, as equals, because technically they're using the resources they have at their disposal to do a job that ultimately serves balance. If that makes sense.
I can respect that theory. I can respect that theory. It's not
Just, I,
identically my theory, but I respect it and I can see where you're coming from. Does that make sense?
mm-hmm. Just let me, I know the difference between an angelic and a demonic deal. Demonics give you what you want on the spot, and then will snatch it from you to get what they need. Angels will give you what you need to do the job. if
Actually,
that makes
from
sense.
actually from my experience, it's been the opposite way around. But
I mean,
I
it might be it might vary from experience.
but I will again, I will respect that thought process. I will respect it. And I will not say, you know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes. And personally, I don't hex. If I had to describe my way of, I know the perfect way to describe my version of hurting someone. And I was told this by a wise man earlier. I'm not going to curse you, I'm going to bless everyone around you. And the main reason is this. I don't, and defensive magic, every magic has its purpose. So hexing necessarily wouldn't work as, it's another tool at the end of the day. Spell work as a whole is a tool. If someone has done me wrong, that's what I would use. Then I would basically bless everyone around them so that they prosper. I wish everyone the best. Um, let's see. And defensive magic? Oh, hell yes. Defensive magic is awesome. That's where I get the most fun because I get very creative with defensive magic. You, it, the more creative you are, the more fun it can be. For instance, there's three ways that you can basically make a defense. That I love my defensive magic. I can absorb your attack and basically fuel me. I can make it flow around me and infuriate you and hit everything around me. Or I can make it flow it and make it hit you back. Or I can just straight up take the hit and then convert it into an energy source and bypass it elsewhere. Then you can also use spatial magic to basically go, you know your attack is going to come in and hit me. So let's make it go through this rift I created, and as soon as it goes through the rift, it's going to pop out behind you. It just depends on how you go about it. Everything's a tool in the end, and that's what I love about it.
And I have to say, I definitely agree with you on that standpoint as well. Pretty much quintessentially, you're right on the spot there. Everything pretty much being a tool or a facet.
Yes. My favorite type of magic? Ooh, ooh, that is a hard one. That is a very hard one. I would have to say spell weaving. Basically taking energy molecules as a whole and basically restitching any spell that hits me and repurposing it as I please. That is one of my favorite things because of how creative I can get with it. So long as I understand the type of energy that's hit me, which I study energy continuously, I can reshape the energy around me to serve my needs. My path is not an easy one per se. I wish everyone the best, and my path, if anyone wants to follow it, I will not admonish one from it. In fact, I will give them a pat on the back and say, the path is not easy, but I'm not going to say don't do it because that would be like telling them that it would be like devaluing them, and that isn't what I'm about. I believe everyone has their limitations, and where they set their limitations to is on them, but my path is about breaking those limitations and moving forward. So if that's your path, then I say go for it. I would love writing my own book on it. Haven't gone into too much depth with the practice to say I can feasibly write enough. I mean, I have a lot of experiences, which I don't know if that counts for much in a book. But my poetry is one thing I want to get out there because I believe my poetry can help people because of how deep I write it. But that's just my way of going about it. Um, but yes, if I had to write a book eventually, I probably will. But I would want to make sure I have enough methods to teach everyone because this my art isn't about making yourself extremely high level. It's about me going up to someone who is perfectly, as the spiritual community call it, mundane, and go, here, this is a tool you can use, and teach them how to empower themselves to become as powerful as any caster. It isn't about that. The moon, I call it an added benefit. Basically, if I'm doing a working and the moon buffs it up, so be it. At least it was beneficial for the time. But if it holds it back and keeps from doing harm, I imagine it was done for the reason of it wasn't the right time to do it. I don't necessarily keep up with the moon patterns, but I do respect them enough to go, it's a nice added bonus when it does occur. But
That I
that's my take
that
on it.
I do that I personally have to say I totally get and actually agree 100 on that.
Tears, that is an interesting question, considering tears would label one as strong or weak, in a sense. But yes, it would, but not in the way that most other paths would, and I guess it could make it just like every other path because of it. So basically, if I had to put it, I guess you could say in a sense, it's like a maestro, if you would, a natural master at your trade. Or in a sense, if you view yourself as becoming a living god, if you would, it's going to be you could call that your title that you achieved through your own thing, but that's also the fact that you the mastery of your own ego and not letting it control you, but only empower you. And I've met a couple of others who've practiced similarly, but I've never actually gotten together with. I've tried getting in with covens, and I, technically speaking, there are people who wish to work with me on such things, but it's more of a temporary basis instead of a lifelong thing. Oh, I highly recognize every Sabbath and whatnot for the holidays. I recognize that they exist. I just personally don't go out and do rituals on that day. If I happen to do a ritual on that day, it's let me send energy because someone just happened to ask me to send energy that day. And if it becomes enhanced, that's, as I said, circumstantially an extra bonus. And but I do respect the holidays highly because I know that it's a core part of practice. Such tools I would use on occasion, but in essence, I would have to make them myself. I believe me personally, I like to push myself by not using tools and honing my own body to push itself beyond its limits so that when I do use tools, it's basically that thing. Yes?
Now, may I ask you a question based on your personal experience with you saying you've worked with covens and you saying you've doing the solo act and everything. What would you say the pros and cons of both have been for you?
That is a very good one. And quick answer to you. I call myself a wanderer. I'm a wanderer. And the pros of solitary practice is no one tells you what, in a sense, what your practice is worth or tries to devalue it or try and change it. So, in a sense, you could say that yes, you get to focus a lot more, but it can get lonely. And you have a good night,
List that.
Lestat. Okay. Um. Anthony, I do agree with you to a degree. I just prefer the term wanderer because wanderer just sounds awesome. I'm a wanderer. I dabble in a little bit of everything.
And I'm just gonna say one more thing to you, Anthony. Anthony, my personal take and my personal opinion is words, titles, and labels are just that. Words, titles, and labels. They really don't, you know what I mean? When you put a title or a label on something, you're pretty much putting yourself in a box and go with whatever label you want to go with for yourself. If you feel like a warlock is what you are, be a Walmart. I'm not a Walmart. Be a Walmart. Words.
You are a
Cannot be.
Walmart. I dub thee Sir Walmart.
I'm so sorry, Anthony. Be a warlock. If that is what you truly feel in your heart, be a warlock and stand tall and stand strong and say, hey, I'm a warlock. I just personally think labels are just that, labels. But by all means, rock the shit out of it if that's your thing.
Well, as I once said, because me and fashion usually get along when I actually do it. If you have a hat and you like that hat and no one else likes that hat, you better rock the shit out of that hat and you better rock it good.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
So all you witches out there and your big witch hat, I respect you. I will keep my fedora. My fedora is my witch hat. Oh, and so where were we? Um. Oh. That is an interesting question. And by the way, Nixie, I do remember what we were talking about. I will get back to the pros and cons here in a second. How I prepare for a spell? Honestly, it's not that complicated. I believe simple is best. I simply take myself and I look at the three facets that exist within me, the conscious, the unconscious, and the subconscious. I unite all three into one so that all the will aligns up and I can bring out the fullest potential within me, and then from there, so long as I keep my space clean on a constant basis, I don't have to worry about that. That's all that matters. It's all about being a pure soul. Now, coven practice, I will say, it is not lonely at all, and you get to feel part of a group. And I love the fact that only that one facet about coven work. Everything else about it, I'm very strong in my. I've uh, we'll just say opinions clash sometimes, and when you live under a rock for 10 years, you develop a very strong opinion.
So, may I
So
ask you a
I
question? I'm gonna ask a question real fast about your path and your views and considering everything of what you said about being pure per se. Okay. Um, how does
Yes.
your path feel about Satanists? Are we impure, or do you think we are pure in that process?
I'm a counter. I'm gonna pull an Aristotle on you, and that question is this: how true are you to yourself?
In my path and my
I
way, I
don't.
find this, well, not just speaking for myself, but many that I know are literally 100% true in their path and in themselves, as well as myself.
There you go. You answered your own question. You are that of the pure being. You are true to yourself. There's no need for me to worry about whether or not you're good or bad, because at the end of the day, I'll need to worry about you if you step in the way of my path. And at which point, that's either a regard of we work together and say, oh hey, let's sit down for a cup of tea. By the way, I love my mug. Or we go, let's cross blades and see what happens. Either way, we're walking separate ways at the end of it. Sometimes we're walking the same path, and we just happen to stay on the same path for a minute. So we converse, and then we go our separate ways.
Makes sense.
Or as Cheshire Cat would say, you could go this way, you could go that way, you could go down yonder. I could be here, and I could be there. It ultimately depends which way you want to go. Now, Anthony, ancestors, they teach you lessons. I know a lot of my previous bodies. And
Hey,
that being said,
Carrie.
that's hello person. With that being said, the ancestors, you if you incorporate them in your practice, just as I do, yes. Then yes, I incorporate my ancestors in my practice because the lessons they learned got me to where I am. And in a sense, that is extremely important. And Book of Shadows, you could say my poetry on the wall is my Book of Shadows. I better yet, this is the easiest way I can do this. My Book of Shadows is everywhere around me. It's in the room that it's in the room that I stay in. It's who I am. I can't put everything in one book. I like it spread out. And I like it in my space so that I'm looking at it constantly. Ultimately, you can't and I would never replace that part of me. Did any of you have any other questions you want me to answer? I'm happy. I still have about 2 more cups of my red reishi tea.
Anybody have any questions at all they want to ask? Saris, myself, anybody? We could even we're willing to. Well, I know I'm willing to answer any question. I know Saris may or may not have limitations under the questions he can answer.
No limits. No
Uh,
limits.
okay, then.
Well,
Neither
the
of us
sky.
have limits.
Of course. So, but that being said, Nixie, did you have
Yes.
anything else you wanted to add
Um.
while we wait for questions and all?
While we wait for questions and all. Do I have anything else I want to add?
I kind of
Um.
respect those who ask questions a lot because they're willing to grow. Oh yeah, that's one tenet on my path. Oh, as I said earlier with necromancy, it is another tool. If you're a necromancer and you believe in rocking your shit, well, rock your shit. I ain't gonna judge. To me, it is an advanced form of earth magic with a little bit of binding included. That is all it is. That is all it is.
I have to say, I've had my I had a pretty good run-in with necromancy myself, and I personally found it to be quite a bit more extensive than just earth magic with a binding to it, personally.
Well, I like to atomically break things down and go. If you look at the or the base teachings of earth magic, you can actually apply them to a lot of the higher end things in necromancy. And earth magic is great for defense. I will say if there's anything that has the best defense spot on, it is earth magic. And oh yeah, oh yeah, I do tarot readings. I do tea readings, tarot readings. Those poems I write, I put them. I do insight readings as I call them. Um, what was the other one? Oh, elemental attunement readings, where I basically look at a. I could even look at tea and basically do a reading. In fact, actually, since I have my tea with me, I'd be happy to provide an example if anyone is interested in that. Elemental attunement with divination is a wonderful thing. Oh, yes, they are. Yes, they are, person. Yes, they are. And I actually do it with the surface of the water, not the tea leaf myself.
I love that person concept. I love that person concept. Just say it.
Hmm. In fact, better yet, give me a minute. Ooh, crap, I've already drinking a quarter of a gallon. Carrie, I will say, who doesn't in this day and age? I mean, honestly, elementals are awesome.
Well, I mean, I can definitely agree with you there because personally, like, back from
This is
my
my tea.
energy work,
It looks like grape juice. I love it.
actually, it kind of has the same
But
effects
anyway,
as an obsidian scrying mirror.
oh yeah. All right, that's fine. I have a cup of tea right in front of me, so this works. Let's see now. Nixie, take a pick of who goes first.
All right, Judy and then Ellen.
Okay, Judy? And then Ellen?
Yes.
Okay. Judy, your family is going through a very rough patch right now, and you really need to worry about that temperament. I'm sorry. It's starting to flare up, and it could be very difficult to let that temperament rein in. So you need to ground out, Judy. Ground out. And the storm might have been caused partially by what was going on earlier in the day for you. I sense your energy flare in there, just a little bit. And finally, Ellen, you're having a rough time in a relationship right now. Um, is it? I don't know if it's boyfriend or girlfriend. The energy. Is it just one of those things where? Is it just a rough patch of an argument you went through earlier today or yesterday or what? But you need to let the issue sit and come back to it when both of you are in a better spot of mind to do so. I can just tell it's someone close to you. That's, well, something tells me boyfriend. Something tells me boyfriend.
It's not boyfriend.
It's definitely,
It's not boyfriend. I can tell you straight out.
it was a guy, okay. I, T scryings are very, can be like that. But yes.
Well, if it was a male, it wouldn't be anybody in her relationship, like in her romantic life.
I know something went down earlier today. Um, oh, oh. She must have a very masculine energy. I do apologize if I assumed anything. It was a very masculine energy. I don't have sight. I feel vibration. If that tells you anything.
I totally respect that, and that totally makes a lot of sense because that's how divination works for me too. It's not like I do get sight, but it starts off with vibration and everything.
Yes, and I do apologize if I assumed anything. I just
I believe you're safe. I believe you're safe 100. Nobody got offended. Nobody got offended.
okay. I will
Ellen's,
say, Dan,
Ellen's
her
very cool.
energy resembles very much male. Her energy is very much male-like. Yours has a hint of male in yours, but you are a little bit more to the feminine side. Not all the way, but you're about halfway there. Oh yeah, and I do nothing. There's another reading style I do, which I just did to you in that moment. It's called pure insight reading, where I just let my third eye go and I basically go, oh, let the information feed. Okay, okay, but yes. Um, did anyone else have any questions? I am game. Okay, I got time.
Anybody have anything they would like to ask as well? I have my scrying sphere right in front of me as well, if you want either one of us. But I do believe the question should be geared more toward Saris himself because he is the interview topic. So it's just was an option to give.
Hmm. Um, while we're waiting, did you have any more questions, Nixie?
I actually do have a couple more questions.
All right.
All right, going back to these four pillars, and I know I said the concept of energy. What is your visualization on them?
Of the four pillars?
Yeah. Like, how do you see them as? Like, do you see them as like beings? Do you see them as literal pillars? Do you see them as energy like I would?
All right. Anthony, give me a minute. I will do a reading for you once I'm done. And I will explain this here before I do the reading. And by the way, congratulations, Anthony. But I wish you the best of luck. All right. That being said, let's see now. So the four pillars, in a sense, are very strong concepts. They can be manifested into entities, but in themselves are very strong concepts. Reality, time, fate, chance. Very strong concepts that no one can really, it doesn't matter what their name is throughout history or time or even species. They still exist. So that being said, that's a very important thing when you actually look at it. Because I don't view them as entities, but I can call upon them like entities. For me, everything is equal. Everything is give and take. And now, and by the way, theoretically speaking, this just popped in my head right now. This tea could help with insight, either that or my insight is just naturally sharp like usual. I don't know the difference, but hey, cheers. It's working. All right. Now, Anthony, I'm gonna ask this ahead of time. I am very blunt with my readings when it comes to love, so before I even look into it, I don't want to. If it does, I will just say what comes to mind. I don't hold back. So, are you sure you want? Are you sure you want a reading for that? That is why I ask, because I don't want to tell. I don't want to be come off as rude. But I'm very much a very good medium for the knowledge that passes through me. I want to clarify this beforehand. I like to give my warning labels ahead of time. And I don't want to collapse that wave by giving you the delusion that everything's all fine and dandy. Very well. I just want to make sure the warning label is there in case I do see anything. I'm going to say it. All right. All right. The marriage, I'm not going to say it's good or bad. You guys are going to be really struggling here and there through from argument to argument, but you guys will make it work. Um if I had to say one thing, you guys need to learn to compromise if you guys want to make it work. But you guys can make it work if you do compromise. You guys have to make sure that one's opinion does not override the other. And I have a feeling one of you is very opinionated, and I think it's the significant. Well, no. Something tells me you have a very strong opinion, Anthony. The other one has a semi-strong opinion, but yours is pretty strong too. It could cause some headbutting down the road. Just learn to compromise. Learn to compromise. That is an interesting question. And that being said, Carrie, or whatever you prefer to be called, what the warning label is still there, so that you know it. What Do you agree that anything I say can, I'm gonna be blunt? That's just part of my nature. I want to verify. Okay. So, so do you mind if I'm blunt? You may not like what I say, just depending on what I see. Okay, that works. You prefer brick walls to subtle knife stabs. Got it. You like to jump a lot, don't you? Well, not a lot. I'm not gonna say a lot because that'd be an exaggeration. But your love life or relations seems to jump here to there, but not necessarily like instantaneous, but like if the person is worth sticking around, you'll stick around for them. But you have a very big heart. That being said, it's looking somewhat hopeful. You got a rough time ahead of you, but well, I can't say rough. Yours is going to be a little bit smoother compared to Anthony's, but you're going to have your own set of challenges. I think that's the best way of putting it. Yes, your own set of challenges. I will say, be careful who you get involved with within the next 2, 3 years. It can just be careful. You got that heart of yours is gonna lead you down the rabbit hole, and that rabbit hole is going to be one hell of a joyride.
See, joyrides are a good thing.
In this case, if I had to say, if I had to describe it, you'd be like a speeding car down the interstate, and occasionally you're getting off on stops to figure out where you're going to settle, and then you're going, no, this place doesn't have exactly what I'm looking for, and then you go to the next one. You stick around to see if it's worth it, and it goes. Oh, yes, they are. Yes, they are indeed. So, but yeah, yours is really fluctuating. You have a lot of tides with yours. The waves will wash over you over and over again, taking you to new shores. Um, but yes, Carrie, your future is you got a lot of storms coming your way. Write them out, and you'll find you will find the one you're looking for. But you got one hell of a set of joy rides coming up. So I'll just say it the old-fashioned way. Welcome to the rabbit hole where we're all mad here.
Again, with the term rabbit hole. I've been going down my own rabbit hole, and I'm still hearing the term rabbit hole.
I'm sorry, I like my rabbit holes.
You know, that totally makes me want to bust out in joking there.
You see, let me ask you a question. Is the rabbit hole worth it? If you were to ask me that question right now, I'd say it is totally worth it.
I have to say, I'm totally enjoying my experience in the rabbit hole as well.
The rabbit hole teaches you a lot of things in life. Let's see. Is there any more questions? I'm happy to answer anything about my practice or the path I walk or why cucumbers are green or
Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the question Carrie asked. Sorry, I just snorted on live. That was terrible. That was terrible.
oh, that mic jab, that mic jab. And
Mic jab. That's what it was. Mic
I'm
jab. Mic jab.
oh, I got that. I was half tempted to no, 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 no. I'm not gonna go there. Not gonna go there. Um, yes, the juice is worth the squeeze. The juice is worth the squeeze. It just depends how far. If the juice is really worth the squeeze, you'll make it worth it. That. Oh wait, correction. Wait. Hold up. Some of them are not worth it though. The next one is not worth it. Do not go for the next one. Do not. But yes. By the way, I do have a very gutter-like mind.
You know, Carrie, I have to agree with you there. I personally, when it comes to getting into an intimate bond with someone, I personally cannot go for the mundane facets. I personally aim for those who have a high enough vibrational that I feel vibrationally compatible to.
Oh yeah. And ultimately, isn't all spiritual practitioners like that?
And Judy also said, I have to overcome anger before I slide down the rabbit hole or I might get lost, right? And I'll state my opinion and then you can state yours on that. Judy, my personal opinion is if the rabbit hole is there and the rabbit hole is being apparent, just slide down that shit. If you're angry at the moment, you're supposed to be angry at the moment. You'll go through turns and twists in the hole that's going to shift your feelings in the process.
Oh yeah. And advice on living with an atheist, I wouldn't say expect put boundaries down, but I would say just
And to
basically,
quote And to quote, sorry, I apologize. I have to state this one point too. And to quote advice that a wise man once told me, who who also is, who also is like, in the spiritual community as well and everything like that. He told me to, you know what I mean, if you're gonna have a feeling like anger or depression, make it so intense that it feels pleasurable.
oh yeah.
And
And
utilize that in a productive aspect.
oh yeah. Um, and one thing, Judy, if you're gonna go down the rabbit hole, just go down it. That's my take on it. What comes comes. If you come out angry at the other side,
But out of the sake of term of rabbit hole, for the meantime, can we just refer to it as what it is, the portal? The portal.
It is the rabbit hole to me. It is the rabbit hole to me. It is much more fun. I love my Alice in Wonderland.
Okay, but you're like the
But
upteenth person who has used that term to me already.
I love that term. Gary, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. I'm just saying right now, to find someone at the proper level is one of the hardest things to do. I spent 10 years by myself. 10 years. I found my way of doing things. Now the hard part is finding someone else who's up there. There you go. And so, let's see here. Is there any more questions? I'm happy to answer here.
I actually would like to say one thing to Anthony real fast. Anthony, it's, you know what I mean, respecting what you do, you know what I mean? That's a great thing on his behalf, especially if he's an atheist, because a lot of atheists tend to have that mindset of it's all bullshit. But as long as he respects the fact that it's not bullshit to you, you know, and you know, and he is supportive, then that's what everybody would want. And I give you much props as well for that because I know me personally, I couldn't harmonialize with someone who was that different in the spectrum of myself personally. So I give you props for that.
But yes, that's uh, that's always a good thing if you can, so long as the rule is this: can you grow together and live together and rise together? Can you guys walk at the same pace? I don't judge. I really don't judge. In fact, good on you. Honestly, age is a number. I like to keep an open mind. Um, so,
Yeah,
is there
Anthony,
any more questions?
my personal belief on that is basically male, female, older, younger, our bodies are just vessels.
Here's something I wrote a while back that here's something I wrote that that might help. We all okay. Perfect. Back at it. We all strive for the epitome. We call perfection that being. We
Sorry, someone's trying to call me at the same time.
I just declined it.
Okay.
I, I mean, I'm not telling you how to run your phone. I'm just saying overall.
Got it. No. I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah, it popped up on mine. Okay, that being said, here's what I wrote. We all strive for the epitome we call perfection. That being said, do we, sorry, I wrote this such a long time ago. Alright. We all strive for the epitome we call perfection. That being said, where do we fall short? By my standards, it is when we build the cage we call home. For that cage is where we start to limit our understanding and deem the safety of home more worth the risk of growth, and that comes with it. Having recognized that, I have built one for myself and I can see the door is open now. I must be that person that says, I will do it, or I am no better than the sheep that surround me. As of today, I will make it, and I will claim my dream today. I truly become the madman who throws the wolves to the side and does things my way. I wrote that about a year ago.
Anthony, as a 55-year-old homosexual male, as you claim yourself, I'm pretty sure a huge majority of your life you've gotten a lot of shit for your relationships because, in your experiences and wisdom and everything like that, you've dealt with a lot more prejudicisms in the LGBT community than even I have. And you know what I mean? I'm the ripe old age of 32. So you should, at that point by that, you should have like a thicker skin when it comes to the shit that you had gotten over it by personal philosophical standpoint.
It's completely respectable if you look at it from the perspective anyway. Love's a beautiful thing when you can achieve it. Unfortunately, I will say this much. I learned this. The more you grow as a person, the more your partner has to grow in order for that relationship to work. And honestly, the way I see yours, you're doing what you feel is right. You're actually getting a new perspective on your life. So I'm not gonna bash you for that. And you guys will continue to teach each other. Don't let others tell you how to live your life so much as it is experience life for yourself. That is honestly my opinion. Exactly. Nixie, did you have anything else that I know you have a lot of questions, so
Actually, right now, my end of the question is pretty complete. I can't think of anything right now to ask at the moment. If anybody would like to ask anything else before we call it a night, I'm cool.
Going once, going twice. Anyone? I'm happy to
Well,
explain anything from how I feel about magic or practices or whatever.
you know, if you want, you can go into how you feel about magic and practices. I just thought that was, I pretty much like was under the impression of when I asked about rituals and everything like that, that was the, you know what I mean? That was the broad
Oh,
spectrum of it.
magic as a whole is, as I said, my trade is everything is a tool that if you use it correctly. That's just how it's always been. That being said, if I had to describe anything else about my upbringing, it's make what you need to work for the situation you're given. I mean, you take kitchen witches philosophy and slap a good old fashioned Japanese warrior's philosophy over the top of it and basically forge your own path. And my path is one I'm used to. Judy, the question isn't if it's good or bad, but so much as it is how effective do you control that anger when you do use it that way? That's the important thing. Is how effective do you use it? It's not a sense of how strong or weak it is, but how functional is it? But is it bad if you get results?
If you get the results you're aiming for, would that really be bad?
Either way, if you ever need me for further interviews or anything, I am open to such things. Um, is there any questions? Any more questions?
I'm kind of tapped out on questions at the moment. I'm sure I'll probably come up with more for in future interviews.
I imagine you'll probably find some other people under rocks too eventually.
Oh, of course, of course, of course. But I always love to have returns.
Of course. That being said, if anyone ever, if anyone ever needs a tea from me, I do know teas that are good for depression and calming down as well. I'm very good overall with stuff like that. Yeah, I can come up with I can come up with a tea for just about anything. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I believe I'm happy to answer anything.
All right, guys. Well, Saris is tagged in the video. So, if you guys have any further questions you want to inbox him on, by all means, he just gave you the permission to go right ahead. Y'all know who I am. Y'all know how to get a hold of me as well. Blase, 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 blah. Blessings and tidings to y'all. Mwah.